Hi, and welcome to my kitchen, and welcome to Taco Tuesday. I'm so excited to share these recipes from Make Manitoba with you today. And tacos are a fantastic way to explore the different protein varieties that we have available to us, and the protein sources from sources that we grow and produce right here in Manitoba. And I'm talking about both plant-based proteins and animal-based proteins, and this taco recipe is great for trying all of them. Today we are going to make a plant-based version and a animal-based protein version. We are using bison for the animal and this textured vegetable protein for our plant-based tacos. So let's get started with the bison meat, and this comes to us thanks to Brooks and Jen White from Borderland Agriculture, so we thank them for allowing us to use this bison. And we are going to fry this up and get it nice and cooked and scrambled and seasoned, and then we are going to use that as part of our topping for our tacos. Now, bison meat, as you can see, is a little bit darker than say beef, but it is high in protein, high in zinc, low in fat, perfect for this kind of recipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start heating my pan and let that get a little bit warm, and then I'm going to fry my my bison in that. All right, so we have let this brown on the one side. It's time to flip, and you see that we have some nice browning on this side. Now we want to do the same to the other side, and I'm flattening it, but I'm not stirring it at this point, and we're going to let that brown. In the meantime, let me talk to you about bison. Bison is a great meat to use in dishes like this. It's a great alternative to other ground meats. Although in a recipe like this, you can use all the different kinds of ground meats that you can think of as well. It's lean. The flavor is a little bit sweeter and maybe a little bit more gamey than beef or ground pork as well. So do anticipate that. But my kids loved it. They loved the ground bison flavor, and it really goes nicely with the more salty, savory toppings and fillings that we're using in these tacos. So if you've never tried ground bison, this is a great recipe to try it out on. Okay, now that we've let it brown on both sides, now is the time when we want to start scrambling it. And then fairly soon we're going to add the seasoning and other ingredients. So it won't take long at all, and that's a beautiful thing about this recipe as well. I mean, the hardest part is chopping all your other toppings. Doing this filling is the easy part. So as that continues to cook, let's talk about the other ingredients that we're using. So we're using half a cup of onions, we're using a clove of garlics, and did you know that if you mince or dice or squish your garlic about 10 minutes before you're actually using it in the recipe, you're going to get more of those health benefits from the garlic. So chop it and just let it sit while you're preparing all the other ingredients, and then you'll get more of those beneficial benefits from your garlic. The seasoning that we're going to add is we are adding some chili powder, some cumin, and some oregano, and we're going to mix that all into our ground bison. Now, in the recipe, it says to taste test and to adjust seasoning based on taste. And you can certainly take that advice for this recipe and just about every other recipe. I think it's always important to make sure that a recipe is done to your liking and not to the recipe writer's liking. So you go ahead and you taste your bison, your TVP, whichever protein source you're using, and adjust the seasoning. So you may decide to add a little bit salt and pepper. You may decide to go and add some cayenne pepper if you prefer things a little bit spicy. So those are all options that are open to you. And now that my bison has been cooked thoroughly and there is no more red left, I'm going to go ahead and add the onions and we want to make sure that those get nice and glassy, and that'll cut down on the harshness of the onion flavor. And it also gives a chance, if there are any small pieces of bison that are remaining to be pink, it'll give them a chance to cook as well. So our onions have cooked, our bison is well cooked. I'm adding some garlic, and I'm going to add those other spices. And don't be surprised if my kids come running at this point, because when you add these seasonings, that's when you're going to get some great aromas in the room. I mean, the garlic and onion and bison are already doing a good job, but this just takes it to the next level. So I'm adding that cumin, chili powder, and oregano. Going to give it a good stir. Now, each of our different protein sources is going to have a different flavor profile, and that's why adjusting the seasoning to your taste preferences is paramount in this recipe, and really does depend on the protein source that you're using. I found that when I do use the bison, I tend to add a little bit more of the chili powder, and add a little bit of salt and a little bit of cayenne pepper, because my family doesn't mind things a little bit on the spicy side. So you decide how much of that to add and taste test. And then, my friends, your bison meat, your topping for your tacos, is finished. So as I mentioned, it's really important to taste test your product before you serve it. So I'm going to taste my bison. So I'm catching a little bit of that cayenne. I'm missing a little bit of salt, so I'm going to add a little bit, and always making sure that I don't pour from the whole container. Just do a little bit of that, adding to that, stir it in, and have another taste test. Now, one of the differences between the textured vegetable protein, or the TVP, and the bison and some of the ground meats is the ground meats are a little bit drier than the pre-cooked TVP. So if you want to make this a little bit saucier, you could add a little bit of flour and cook that in a little bit, and then add a little water, and you'll have more of a saucy base to your ground meat. But the last time I served this to my family, they were fine with it just the way it is. So I'm just going to leave it crumbly and have this out as one of our toppings. So the second version of this taco recipe that we're going to make is using TVP. Now, TVP stands for textured vegetable protein. And basically, this is using a plant and extracting the protein from that plant and shaping it into a product that looks, tastes, and feels like an animal product. So it's easy for us to substitute in recipes like this taco recipe. And it just opens up the amount of variety of proteins that we can use in our dinners and our regular eating habits. So we know that 40% of Canadians are interested in exploring more plant-based protein options. And this textured vegetable protein is definitely one of them. And it's being studied and processed right here in Manitoba. In fact, it starts with the products grown on Manitoba farms. So we have our soybeans, and the textured vegetable protein, the TVP, that we're using today does come from a soybean base. So the protein from these soybeans, which are grown in Manitoba or somewhere on the Canadian prairies, is extracted to be used in making this textured vegetable protein. But it doesn't have to come from just soybeans. Our TVP could also come from green peas or yellow peas. And these dried peas are also crops grown here on the prairies and in Manitoba. And they are being studied at the U of M as well. So very cool option. Another place where we can get protein for using in food products like TVP is from wheat. And of course, we are some major wheat growers here in the prairies. So all of these foods which we grow here are then being researched and studied at our university, and then being used at our new facilities, our new plant protein processing plants operating here in Manitoba. World-class facilities, world-class research happening right here to help us figure out how we can get more nutritious variety and different sources of protein in us. So we are studying both the animal side of things and the plant-based side of things, and we as consumers are benefiting. Now, when I was working on this Make Manitoba project, I was really excited to see the research that was being done at our very own university. And if you think of any of the concerns that we as consumers have about our food sources, so animal husbandry, environmental sustainability, animal welfare, and human nutrition and food processing, all of those things are being studied right here in Manitoba. They're being made with products grown here in Manitoba, and I think that's so exciting for us. And we are so fortunate to live in a province where all of that is happening right here, and then we can make delicious foods like this. So with that little bit of passion and emotion on our Manitoba proteins, let's jump right in and cook some of this TVP. And actually, I wanted to show you one more thing. This is what, so these are the soybeans that are grown in Manitoba. And then when the protein is removed from that and extruded into these dry flakes. So you can buy TVP in this dry flake format, or you can buy it pre-cooked and pre-rehydrated in this format, and it's often sold under products like Ground Round or meat alternatives. And now some of the meat alternatives on the market now, some are made with soy, some are made with pea protein, so just, or wheat protein. So just read the ingredient list and see what your options are when it comes to buying products like this. Now you can imagine this product here is going to be very quick to cook up. Basically, we're just going to heat it and we're going to add some seasoning. So let's get started with that right away. We are going to start with a hot pan, add a little bit of oil, and we are going to saute our onions and garlic first this time to get them to be nice and translucent, because they will take the longest to cook in this recipe. So it's very quick indeed. So I'm adding both the garlic and the onions to my pan and making sure that I'm stirring as they become glossy. We don't want to burn them or brown them. Obviously we don't want to burn them, but we don't want to brown them either. They tend to get a little bit bitter flavored if they get too brown. So we want to prevent that, and you'll see a lot of recipes telling you that as well. So now the textured vegetable protein, you can find this in the vegetarian section of your grocery store. That's the pre-cooked version. And the flakes you can usually find in the bulk food section or in bulk stores, sold as textured vegetable protein or TVP flakes, so that you can look for that. If you're in a really fine specialty store, you can actually get TVP in different formats as well. So you can get it in larger chunks that would replicate more like a chicken nugget, or you can get them in pearls and different size of flakes as well. So depending on the kind of food that you'd like to cook. So now that our onions are a little bit glossy, I'm going to go ahead and add my TVP. And unlike with the ground meat where I was trying to keep it nice and flat, I can just go ahead and crumble this into the mixture right away. And we are just concentrating on getting it nice and hot. So the seasoning that we're going to use for this is exactly like we used for the bison version as well, or the other ground beef or ground meat versions. And again, the key is to taste and to adjust based on the protein source that you're using and your family's personal preferences. So I'm adding the chili powder, the cumin, and the oregano. So to learn more about textured vegetable protein and this recipe, definitely check out the Make Manitoba website, and it'll give you more information about textured vegetable protein, some of the research that's happening on the different vegetable proteins that are being researched, and the different techniques and qualities that they're looking at as they're looking for looking at the different vegetable proteins that are available. So everything from how do we make sure that the land is being treated and managed efficiently, to how is the human nutrition component of this, how is the processing happening, and how can we be more efficient at the innovations or at the company processing the vegetable proteins to best replicate and mimic the flavor and texture that consumers are looking for. So all of those things are being addressed, and you'll find more information at that Make Manitoba website. So that's pretty much it. It didn't take much more than just stirring a bunch of things and adding some ingredients. And you'll see that this is a little bit wetter than our ground bison version, but again, I'm going to do a little bit of a taste test. And that's pretty good. I think it has enough salt and peppery flavor already. I am going to add a little bit of cayenne pepper. Look, I know my family, I know they like it a little bit on the spicy side, so here I go with a little bit of cayenne. Stir that in. If you want it to be even more saucy, you can add a little bit of water to this and get a little bit more of that fluidity. Otherwise, we are good to go. And now the most fun part of Taco Tuesday is the taco bar. And what a great opportunity for you to put out a couple of different types of toppings. Obviously the veggies and the cheese and the little savory toppings, the sour cream, this avocado cilantro sauce, a little green onion, cilantro or parsley, whatever you wish, and to offer some different protein options. So today we have our bison and our TVP, but of course you could try different types of toppings as well, and different sources of plant protein or animal-based protein. And then you just go ahead and assemble and have some fun with it. So this first taco that I'm going to make is I'm going to use my TVP. And so I start with the TVP, and notice how for anyone who's a little bit concerned or hesitant, it does look very similar to the ground meat version. And so that's the idea behind a TVP, is to really mimic that look, taste, texture, and mouthfeel. It's a little bit softer than your ground meats, but it's pretty tasty. And by the time we add all these other toppings, it's going to be easy to introduce someone to this new texture that they might have for the first time. So lots of different options. What's your favorite topping? I like a little bit of everything. The problem with a little bit of everything is your taco starts to get really full really quick. So sometimes maybe less is better, but we'll do that on the next taco, right? A little bit of lettuce on there. Oh my gosh, I forgot the beans. And another plant-based protein source. It's gonna be loaded. I love this cilantro sauce, cilantro avocado. If you don't have this, you could just do slices of avocado. And because I like cilantro, I'm gonna add some of that. And how about, oh, what the heck, a little dollop of sour cream. You could also use a little bit of salsa on here. And then let's top it off with a squeeze of lime. And voila, your taco is ready.